Hi there, this lecture is going to be on region, cavities, and directional terminology. These are the lesson objectives we're going to be going over. I'm not going to read them over to you, but I'm going to give you about 30 seconds or so to look them over to see what we are going to be covering in today's lecture. Okay, so let's start with anatomic position. This is with the body upright, facing to the front, arms at the side with palms forward and the feet being parallel. The larger person over here is a side view, and anterior or ventral in the front, posterior or dorsal in the back, superior or cranial towards the top, and inferior or caudal towards the bottom. If you rotate to be facing straight on, you have the sagittal line going down the middle of the body. As things get closer to the sagittal line, they are medial, and as they move outward, they are lateral. These are the directional terms: anterior, posterior, medial, lateral, proximal, distal, superior, inferior, cranial, caudal, superficial towards the outside, and deep more towards the inside, and caudal towards the lower section of the back, from the Latin for tail, cauda. These are roots for regions of the head and trunk. I'm not going to go over those line by line here, but please avail yourself of this and pause if you want to take a look at them. You also have the PowerPoints that you can access. So we have three planes we'll be looking at. There's a frontal plane or coronal, divides the body into anterior and posterior parts, or front or back. Sagittal plane divides the body into right and left. If it's directly through the midline, it is a mid-sagittal or medial plane. And the transverse plane goes through the body and divides it into the superior or upper or inferior parts. So this is what those look like. There is a frontal plane with the dorsal plane in back. There's a mid-sagittal plane with the left and right halves, and a transverse or horizontal plane. Next, we're going to look at body cavities. There are 5 of those. There's the cranial, spinal, thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic. The abdominal and pelvic are often combined into the term abdominopelvic. This is a representation of the cavities. There's the cranial cavity up top, the spinal cavity running down the back, the thoracic cavity that is above the diaphragm containing the lung and hearts. There is the abdominal cavity below the diaphragm containing your organs like the stomach, the intestines, the liver, the kidneys, and then the pelvic cavity down below that, nestled within the pelvic girdle, and as mentioned before, often combined into the abdominopelvic cavity. So, what do each of these cavities contain? The dorsal cavity contains the cranial and the spinal cavity. The ventral cavity contains the thoracic, and as we mentioned, the diaphragm separates the thoracic and abdominal cavities. And the abdominopelvic cavity has the abdominal and the pelvic cavities contained within it. The abdominal regions can be imaginally divided into 9 regions. The 3 regions from top to bottom that run down the middle of the abdomen are the epigastric, or above the stomach, the hypogastric, or below the stomach, and the umbilical, that's dead center. So that's the first 3. The other 6 are as follows. There's the right and left hypochondriac on top, There is the right and left lumbar in the middle next to the umbilical, and the right and left iliac on the bottom. So what this looks like is as follows. Hypochondriac, hypochondriac, lumbar, lumbar, iliac, and iliac, and then running down the middle is the epigastric, hypogastric, and umbilical dead center right there. You could also, as an alternative, divide the abdomen into 4 quadrants: the right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, and left lower quadrant, usually referred to in chart notes as RUQ, LUQ, RLQ, and LLQ. So make you are always oriented correctly. So the left and right you're talking about is a person in anatomical position, and it is their left and right, not your left and right. So there are some more prefixes you'll need to be aware of. Take a look at those and the examples and be able to use them in words in reference to positions and directions. And then last but not least, there is a blow-up of the 4 quadrant division of the abdominal cavity.